Hey everyone, David Aragona and Craig Milkowski are taking a look at the feature race on Saturday at Gulfstream Park. It is the Grade 1 Pegasus World Cup going 9 furlongs on the main track for older runners. $3 million is the purse of this race. Big weekend coming up at Gulfstream. A slew of stakes action on Saturday. If you're playing on Sunday, note that is the day that they're doing the mandatory payout in the Rainbow Six sequence if you like to wait for those days. But the focus of this video is that feature race on Saturday, the Pegasus World Cup. And Craig, we've got 13 runners entered for this race. Only 12 will participate in the main body of the field currently. The AE Castle Chaos is on the outside looking in. But within the main body of these 12 runners, Craig, it seems like a wide open affair, maybe lacking the star power that we've seen in this race in past years, but definitely an intriguing race to handicap.
Yes, I'm really looking forward to betting this race. It's a good, strong, deep field. Pretty much every horse you'd like to see in here, save maybe one or two, has shown up. And when you look at the Timeform US preview page, every horse in the field has a spotlight figure of 120 or greater, save one. And that horse has a 119. So, yeah, if all the horses show up and run their best races, it is quite the matchup.
Yeah, we do have a couple of clearly defined favorites on the morning line in the number 7 National Treasure, who is set at a pretty low 9-5, as well as the number 8 First Mission, the second choice. I'll be interested to see how the public approaches this race. I saw it as a fairly wide open affair, as I think you did, Craig. So you really do want to let price be your guide. And we'll talk about some of the prices that we think these horses will go off at as we go through the field. Before we get to the main contenders, though, let's take a look at the Timeform US pace projector for this race, Craig, because I think assessing the pace of this race is a key handicapping angle going into this Pegasus World Cup. There does appear to be plenty of speed signed on, particularly in the form of that number 4, Hoist the Gold, who seems like the quickest of the quick in the early stages. If he runs as fast as he did early in the Cigar Mile last time, he's probably going to be in front heading into that clubhouse turn. I think the real question is who tries to go with him early.
Yes, it is quite the jumble. And to show how much speed is in the race, you can look at National Treasure, the 7 horse, shown back in, I guess, 4th or 5th. He's a horse who led the Preakness wire to wire. He nearly won the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile on the front end. So it looks like quite a bit of pace, and I have no argument with that fast-paced designation.
Yeah, do just want to briefly comment on the National Treasure position on this pace projector. It might look a little weird that he showed that far back, but that's because they've been playing around with his running style in some recent starts. I think if this pace projector were solely based on the last race, when they sent him in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, he'd be right up there on the lead with Hoist the Gold. So we'll see if they decide to get aggressive with him again. If pace does develop, it would certainly help horses like the number 3 Dynamic One or the number 6 Senior Buscador, who's currently shown off the screen, but they both have plenty of late pace power, especially if you're looking at the Timeform US late pace ratings. Well, Craig, let's go through this field in post position order, beginning with the number 1 Nimitz Class, who is going to be a long shot in this race, and not a long shot that is totally ridiculous. I mean, he does have some speed figures that put him in the mix, a couple of 120 plus numbers along the way. He had a heavy schedule in 2023, running well on a number of occasions for former trainer Bruce Kravitz, including when he took down the heavy favorite Gun Knight over a sloppy track in the Park's Dirt Mile 2 back. He did put in a rare poor effort last time, subsequently privately purchased, transferred to George Weaver, so going out for a new barn this day. And it does feel like it's asking a lot of this horse after such a stacked 2023 campaign.
Yeah, he's run a tough schedule, and I don't like seeing that last race where he was beaten at very short odds. Didn't really show up that day. Draws what's a tough inside post position for a horse who does his best running up near the lead.
The number 2 is O'Connor. Let's take a look back at his most recent start. Actually, a couple of runners in this Pegasus World Cup coming out of here. O'Connor is the one on the rail into the stretch, trying to sneak through inside of that other horse that's highlighted, Grand Aspen, who was leading the way early. We'll talk about him in just a little bit. But as for O'Connor, Craig, I thought he got a pretty good trip, all things considered, this day. He was a bit closer to the pace than he's been some other occasions last year. Snuck up the inside under Tyler Gaffalione and just is able to grind out that victory in the end. He's finally putting some top efforts back to back. Took him a long time to get back to the winner's circle in this country, but was a game winner with the Fayette 2 back, ran up to the same level in the Harlan's Holiday last time. Probably needs another step forward to beat this field, but he's supposed to get the right pace scenario.
The right pace scenario, he draws a good inside trip, so there's no reason to think he won't get a good ground saving ride from, like he got from Tyler Gaffalione last time. Maybe he can get it from Paco Lopez this time. I think he's got a chance in here.
The number three is Dynamic One, and he's looking to get back to his glory days in 2021, the middle of 2022. And we've really only seen him on one occasion in the afternoon since that Jockey Club Gold Cup performance in 2022 during his 4-year-old season. Now he's 6 years old, trying to get back into form in this Pegasus World Cup. Pretty tough spot to tackle, just second off this long layoff. And Craig, I didn't see a whole lot in his return that would make me want to take him in here, but maybe he just really needed that race.
Yeah, I couldn't blame anyone who just wanted to put a line through that race. Things didn't go well. It was just a one-turn mile, but that's putting a lot of faith in Todd Pletcher if you like this horse. I'm not sure what price he's going to be, but he was off for a very long time before that race. So you would have to have some real hope that he could revert back to races that happened a long time ago.
Yeah, and I was trying to ask myself, would I like this horse even if he didn't have that layoff in this kind of spot based on his 2022 form? For me personally, no, because I've never been his biggest fan, but maybe he gets the right kind of pace setup. The number four is Hoist the Gold. Let's take a look at his most recent start when he was a decisive winner of the Cigar Mile at Aqueduct, going the one-turn mile over this muddy sealed track, and also in this race closing on the far outside of Senior Buscador. Castle Chaos highlighted as well. We'll get to them later. But as for Hoist the Gold, Craig, he really had everything go his way from a track profile standpoint on this day, because the track was quite speed favoring, also tilted towards horses racing on the rail, and he had all of the best of it from that standpoint. But he still showed a lot of speed on the backstretch to get clear of that field early and put forth the best effort that we've seen from him. He also ran a very strong effort three back when he won that Phoenix, was not disgraced in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. So there's a case to be made that Hoist the Gold is just in the best form of his career right now, but I still have some doubts that he's a true two-turn mile and an eighth horse.
Yeah, I think the distance is probably the biggest question. As you said, he had a lot going his way in that Cigar Mile. It was a heavily speed favored track, as you can see by that bright red race rating in the Timeform USPPs. I think he'll be right there as part of the pace, but I just have trouble seeing him finish out that last furlong.
Up next is Trademark. He is one of the few horses coming out of the Grade 2 Clark in late November at Churchill Downs, and he was actually the upset winner that day. And Craig, if you're able to make an excuse or just draw a line through his performance in the Fayette two-back when he really was no factor, just put in a rare clunker for him, his 2023 form is pretty strong. He ran deceptively well in that Lucas Classic three-back, chasing a pretty fast pace that fell apart, went to closers. And then last time in the Clark, he got a good trip. He was keenly rating in behind the speeds, tipped out at the top of the stretch, but he ran down first mission fair and square that day. And if you can project that he's going to get back to that kind of effort, he's a player here.
He is, and other than that race at Keeneland, the Fayette, as you noted, he always seems to show up and run his race. That was a career best speed figure. I can say it's not the speed figure that I have the most confidence in. There's some pretty big numbers coming out of it in this race, but I'm not saying it's impossible they ran that fast. So if he can run back to that race in the Clark, he certainly could contend here.
The number 6 is Senior Buscador. He is another horse coming out of the Cigar Mile that we just took a look at, with Hoist the Gold winning by so much. But I thought Senior Buscador did well to get up for second, considering that he was the one that was probably most compromised by the track profile. Deep closers just were not doing well on that Aqueduct card December 2nd, and he made up a lot of ground to get up for second that day. That was going the one-turn mile. I think that distance with a nice pace, it suits him, even though the track was against him that day. Now he's stretching out to the two-turn mile and an eighth distance, and he's going to need pace and trip to work out, but he's a pretty classy horse, Craig, that is capable on his best day.
Yeah, he shows up, and he was a horse I liked in that Cigar Mile before we saw how the track was playing that day, and I thought he ran fine. I think of the mile and an eighth distance is fine. The one thing I'm very confident in is we're not going to get the 21 morning line that this horse is listed at.
Yeah, that's the morning line in this race that I would disagree with the most. Well, maybe there are a couple of them, but I was viewing him as more like a 6 to 7 to 1 shot in this race because I think a lot of people know that he was compromised by the bias last time, and he's got plenty of prior form from last year, including that deceptively strong third place finish in the Awesome Again, where he finished ahead of National Treasure. That just makes him a contender in this race. And speaking of National Treasure, let's take a look at him next. He is the number 7 in this race, and we'll check out his most recent start in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile when he led into the stretch. Also highlighted here, Skippy Longstock, who we'll get to a little bit later. But Craig, he's really game to nearly hold off Cody's Wish. You could see Cody's Wish comes to him at the 8th pole here. National Treasure really digs in to battle this horse to the wire. I will say that National Treasure got away with a fairly uncontested lead, set an honest pace. It wasn't overly fast. I think you'll see that in the Time Form US pace figures for that Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, but it was a good step forward for this horse. It feels like the connections have finally figured out that to get the best out of this guy, they've got to be aggressive with him. So I anticipate that they're going to ride him aggressively into that clubhouse turn once again. And I've been watching his recent training for this race, Craig, and unsurprisingly from the Baffert barn, he looks really good in the morning.
He's a horse who I didn't quite know what they were doing with him over the summer and fall after his Preakness win, trying to take him off the pace. And I mean, he had his best win in the Preakness, but I also think you could argue his best race was that Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, even better than the Preakness from a speed figure perspective and just quality perspective. So it won't shock me if he runs well. I think he'll be favored. I like you, don't think 9-5. I think that would be kind of pushing it. Not sure he'll be that low in this big of a field, but with Bob Baffert at the helm, it's always possible. He has a chance, but I have a feeling he's going to be overbet.
Yeah, whether or not you want to bet him, I think you do have to be afraid of these Bob Baffert shippers in major races like this. Up next, the number 8, First Mission, who is another horse that is likely to attract plenty of support in this race. And he was the beaten favorite in the Clark last time. And personally, Craig, I didn't think he had a huge excuse that day. The pace wasn't quite fast, but it was honest enough. He took some pressure. He got to the lead at the quarter pole and was immediately tackled by First Mission, unable by a trademark. First Mission was unable to fend that rival off, but was battling back gamely to the wire. I think just based on the overall upside and perceived expectations around this horse, a lot of people feel that was a race that he was supposed to win at 6-5. Now he's stepping up into a tougher spot. He can stalk from just off the pace, but he does need to take that step forward against top competition now.
The big question with him is the pace, because as you see, he does most of his running up close to the pace when he's able to win his races. I thought his Clark was fine. That pace, it's not coded in red, but 140 pace figures, it's not exactly stealing it, especially when you're pressured. The question is, will he be able to handle that kind of pressure again and hold off a bigger, stronger field?
The number 9 is Grand Aspen, and he is a horse who was run down by O'Connor. We took a look at that replay a little bit earlier of the Harlan's Holiday, and I didn't think he had a big excuse that day either to get run down, Craig. I mean, he was setting a moderate pace, or stalking a moderate pace, I should say, got to the lead and just couldn't hold off the closer on that occasion. He's been steadily improving since switching back over to dirt for trainer Todd Pletcher, but this is a huge class test for him, and I am pretty skeptical that he's going to be quick enough to get forward in this field.
I agree with that. The pace is his big problem as well. He has been improving on dirt. You see his Time Form US speed figures moving forward each time, but they would have to take another pretty big jump forward to win this race in a contest where he likely is going to be in a new running position than he's used to.
I will say, if you like Grand Aspen, I think you're going to get closer to 20-1 than that 8-1 morning line. It doesn't seem like a horse that's going to take that much money in this race. The number 10 is Il Miracolo, who has just been knocking on the door against tough competition for a while now, Craig. Not really winning the big races, but he's been steadily improving against some nice horses. Was third in that Pennsylvania Derby. Was in the photo with O'Connor in a roughly run stretch drive of the Fayette, where he got bumped multiple times by the winner. And then in the Clark last time, you could argue he was a little out of position for much of the race and was stayed on decently at the end. He's got that string of low 120 Time Form US speed figures that puts him in the mix here, and now he's making his first start as a 4-year-old off a brief freshening, something that he hasn't had basically for his entire career.
He's about as consistent as you could ask for a horse. And as you mentioned, as a lately turned 4-year-old, a newly turned 4-year-old, he could certainly improve another 4, 5, 6 points, which could put him right there. We're getting into that part of the race, though, where maybe post position becomes a factor. The 10 post is not very good for Gulfstream, going a mile and an eighth with a short run to the first turn. But with his running style, he's pretty versatile. Maybe he's one that could adapt.
Yeah, interesting that he's been training steadily during that time away. Not the case for some others in this field. Feels like he's pointing to this race in South Florida, which is his home base. So we'll see if Il Miracolo can take that step forward. The number 11 is Krupe. We'll take a look at his most recent start when he was a narrow winner of the Queens County at Aqueduct. And Craig, I thought this was a real progression from this horse, a game effort. You're going to see in the stretch here, he actually gets passed by that horse on the outside, Signator, who was the heavy favorite in this race. And once Krupe feels the pressure from that rival, he battles back gamely inside of him, splits horses in the stretch to come on and narrowly win this race by a neck. A really gutsy performance from this horse, and it just feels like maybe Krupe is finally putting everything together. He's won 4 of his last 5 starts since finally breaking his maiden over the summer, and even if you look at the one loss at the Pennsylvania Derby, when you go back and watch that replay, he was going to do something in that race before just running into traffic in mid-stretch. Feels like this is a different version of Krupe that we're seeing now.
He's certainly on the improve. His speed figures are still going to need to take another jump forward, but he's another 4-year-old, so maybe he has that forward move in him. Another one I'm a little concerned with, the 11 post, though. He's not like a horse who has to have the lead, but he does usually run well with more forward position.
And then on the outside is the number 12, Skippy Longstocking, one of 2 Saffie Joseph trainees in this race. Interestingly, Tyler Gaffalione, who apparently would have had the choice between this one and O'Connor, he's the regular rider of both, winds up on Skippy Longstocking. I'm sure that commitment was prior to the post position draw. But as for Skippy Longstocking, Craig, I am worried about the post for this horse because it feels like he runs his best races when he's able to be involved in the pace, but usually when he gets good trips on top of moderate paces. And I just wonder if he's going to be able to work out that trip, rushing forward from the outside into the clubhouse turn where a lot of other horses want to get forward. He's got talent to compete with this field, but I just wonder about that trip.
Yeah, the trip's not good, and I just wonder if he's really quite this good a horse. He's never been one when he moves up to the top level that really seems to bring his best effort. He does better in the grade 3 type races. So a combination for me, the post, and I'm just not sure he's good enough to win a race like this.
Well, Craig, let's throw up our picks for this Grade 1 Pegasus World Cup. And I love this, what I see. We've got 8 numbers on the screen. We went in completely different directions in this race. And I think that's the way it's supposed to be in a race that's as competitive as this Pegasus World Cup. A lot of directions to go based on your opinions. You're going to land on the number 2, O'Connor. And taking a look at your picks, it seems like you're expecting this pace to come apart.
Exactly. I was looking for horses who are going to be picking up pieces late. I like his good inside draw, and I could see a similar trip the last time. If he can work one out from the inside where he's going to save ground and hopefully find a way through. And I liked his gameness that day.
Yeah, I just tried to make some value-based selections in this race, horses that I think are going to be the right price compared to what I think that their fair odds of winning are. And when I sort of went through my value line in this race, the horses that came up to me as the ones that figured to be the best value, based on my opinion, are the number 10, Il Miracolo, and the number 11, Krupe. Certainly not among the most likely winners of this race, but I think that Il Miracolo fits with these horses from a class standpoint, might have that step forward in him, is going to be the fair price. And then the 11, Krupe, another horse that really needs the pace to come apart, but I like his recent progression. Think he might be figuring things out for Todd Pletcher, and he's going to be a big price in this race, might even float up off that 20-1 morning line. So many directions to go in this Pegasus World Cup. Craig is the number 2, O'Connor on top. My top pick is the number 10, Il Miracolo. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.